Hello and welcome. This is Wednesday Live with Evie. It's number, I believe it's 13. And today's topic is the ins and outs of successful accountability buddies. And I would love to know, before we get started and even before I introduce myself, I would love to know what your motivation is for being on, for watching the video, whether it's live or the recording later. And what would you like to know about accountability buddies? What would you like to know? What would be helpful for you? And if you've had accountability buddies in the past, what worked for you and what didn't? So, my name is Evie Burke. I am the mindset mentor and success coach at One Insight Closer. And I work with entrepreneurs and I help them be more productive. I help women entrepreneurs take productivity to the next level. And I do that because I really want them to be able to be fully present with the people that they spend their evenings or the rest of their days with, so that they're not worried about what didn't get done or what needs to be done tomorrow, or can I scoot back into the office and just get a couple of more things done, but instead they can just be present with the people that they're with. So, like I said, today we're talking about accountability buddies, and there's a couple of different types of accountability buddies. There's many different ways that you can get accountability or receive accountability. And we're going to be talking about those. We'll also talk about why you might want accountability. But before I go into that, I am just going to share this video a couple of places so that people can find it. And so give me 1 second to do that. And one more place to share it. All right, I think that's it. So, accountability. Why is it helpful? Accountability is helpful because, hi Trisha, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. I think I am. Accountability is important because it gives us sometimes that extra push, that other extra motivation to get something done. And it's super important to do that, especially when you're working for yourself, because when you're working for someone else, you have outside motivation, right? You have a boss that's going to say, hey, this is due on Friday, and, you know, where are you with it? Where when you're working for yourself, you know, you might have your clients to check in on you with those things. However, a lot of times there's things that you're doing that need to happen for your business, and the client's not going to remind you of them, right? So you have to be motivated from yourself to get those things done. And when you have somebody that's holding you accountable, it's that extra motivation. It's that extra bit of, oh, so-and-so's going to ask me about it. That extra bit of, I really want to get this done so that I can share that it was completed. And that can be super, super important and super helpful when you're working for yourself. So there's different ways that you can get accountability. There is the tried and true accountability buddies, which is what we're going to talk about more in just a little bit. There is working with a coach, where you come back, you know, once a month, a couple of times a month, 3 times a month, for whatever it is for that relationship with a coach, and you know, you're working with them and they're holding you accountable. There's group programs or masterminds where you're in a group of people and you're checking in with them on a regular basis about, you know, this is my progress, this is where I said I'd be, and this is how that's going. And there's also some other ways to get accountability. And one of those ways is through Facebook groups. And I know in my Facebook group, Productivity for Women Entrepreneurs, that's one of the things that we do. Every Monday I say, what's your most important task for the week? What's your intention for the week? And on Friday, I say, hey, how did it go? And if somebody doesn't update, then I'll start going through and I'll start asking, hey, How did that go? What's going on? And I know that people in the group say that it's been super helpful, that they're getting things done. Just a minute, I have a note over here. That they're getting things done that they didn't get done, wouldn't have gotten done before. And it's, like I said, it's really important to have those places where you can go and have some accountability. So, accountability buddies. Let's talk about accountability buddies. And what accountability buddies are is one, maybe two, but generally it's just one other person that you check in with on a regular basis and say, hey, these are the things that I'm going to get done today, this week, this month, however you have that relationship set. And so it's somebody you're regularly checking in with that's regularly holding you accountable. So when you're thinking about who you want your accountability buddy to be, there's some things that you might want to think about. I know for myself, I've had different accountability buddies over the years, and there have been some that worked really well, and there have been some that didn't work so well. And a lot of it had to do with, we had different priorities. So when you're thinking about who you want to be your accountability buddy, think about what are your priorities and what are their priorities. So for example, if you are working full-time in your business, is it going to be helpful for you to have somebody who's working part-time in their business? Or do you want somebody else that's working full-time in their business? It might seem like a minor thing, but it can really make the difference, for everything from when you meet to how much you want to get done. Because sometimes when you're accountability buddies with somebody and you see the big cool things they're working on, it can push you to be like, oh, I could do some of that. That's a great idea. And sometimes, we might not have the time to do that. So if we're working part-time in our business, we also might feel overwhelmed where somebody who's working full-time is getting all of these things done, and you might feel like, oh, well, maybe I should do that. Like, how can I put more time in it? But it might make you feel overwhelmed and maybe a little discouraged. So it can be really helpful if you are in the same place. So both how much time you spend in your business, so whether it's full-time or part-time, and think about where you are in your business. What are your goals? Are you both trying to hit $1 million? Because that's going to look a lot different than if somebody's trying to reach, $50,000 or $100,000, and those numbers are great, and knowing what your number is can be really important and motivating. And you might not want to, if you're trying to reach 50,000 or 70,000 or something like that, you might not want to be accountability buddies with someone who's trying to reach their first $1 million. The things that you're doing are going to be a bit different. So think about where you are in your business. And think about your style and which style you want to be on the receiving end of. So for example, when I tell people I'm a productivity coach, and one of the things I do is I hold people accountable. A lot of times, well, in one particular instance, because this person had a background in the military, he's like, oh, you're that drill sergeant, right? You're making sure they're getting their stuff done. And I had to tell him, I said, well, if somebody's if somebody wants a drill sergeant, I'm probably not the right fit for them, because I'm not going to be the one saying, why the hell didn't you get that done? I'm going to be more the person who's like, okay, so tell me what's going on there. Why wasn't that done? I'm going to have a softer approach to it. But some people really like and really thrive with the drill sergeant approach. So know what works for you, and know which approach you are. So know if you're that drill sergeant, or if you're the mama bear, or if you're somewhere in between. And yeah, Mary says she's not going to be a drill sergeant. No, I'm not. And when you're looking for an accountability buddy, be upfront. Ask them, what's your style? What style do you want? And so you can decide if it's a right fit for you. And then there's also logistics. So once you've found that person, you want to know what to expect in the meeting. So you want to set up, and before I jump in there, if anybody has any questions around accountability buddies or wants to share what works for them or what doesn't work for them, add it to the comments. I'd love to see it. So back to the logistics. You also want to know the logistics. When do you want to meet with your accountability buddy? And is it a weekly thing where you check in once a week, or is it a daily thing? And how long do you spend? So one of the things you don't want to end up happening is if you're meeting every day, that meeting should be 10, maybe 15 minutes, right? Because you're popping in, you're sharing what's going on, and you're popping out. You don't want to start telling stories. You don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of everything that's happening in your life, right? You might want to have that time maybe once a week or once a month, but you don't want to have a daily accountability buddy that all of a sudden you're spending an hour with every single day, because that's quite a time commitment every single day. So have clear expectations about what you're sharing. Right? So if you're meeting daily, you don't need to share, here's the 10 things that I want to get done today. You might just share your top 1 or 2 things. The things that these are really the most important things that I need to get done today. And so I'm going to share them with you, my accountability buddy, so that tomorrow when we talk, you can ask me if that top 1 or 2 those top 1 or 2 things were completed. And who cares if, the 10th item got done or not? As long as the most important things got done, those are the things that you want them to hold you accountable for. If you're meeting weekly, again, just the top maybe 1 to 3 things. You don't have to give them, your weekly list of to-dos and say, these are all the things I'm going to get done. You just want to share what are your top priorities, right? What are the things that are the most important that you want to be held accountable for? So another thing to think about is it a no complain zone, or is there some leeway there? And what I mean is sometimes we need to vent, right? Sometimes maybe a client does something that is so frustrating, or we're somewhere and something happens and we need a safe place to vent. And an accountability buddy can be a very safe place to do that. However, you also don't want to get super deep into the stories. So what I've seen people do is they'll set time limits, anywhere from 1 minute to 3 minutes, and say, you have, that amount of time to vent. And at the end of the time, I'm going to ask you, what do you want to do about it? If it's something, like that. So that you have that time to vent, and then you can move into action. So you're not stuck in the story of, oh, isn't it horrible that such and such, so-and-so did XYZ and this is how it affected me. But you can get that off your chest, and then you can think about, how do I want to respond to that? What's my next step? So Mary says, just a minute. I'm laughing at your comment, Ellen, and I'll get to that one in a minute. Mary says that her accountability buddy and her meet every week for about 30 minutes. And that they've had to play with the schedule. Yes. Oh, that's great. So they officially meet weekly, but sometimes they'll pop each other a message or an email and say, hey, how are things going? So yeah, you can have those informal check-ins and say, hey, how is it going? What's happening for you this week? That's great. And Ellen says, and this is the one I was laughing at, no complaining, that's impossible. It's not impossible. It can, however, be a little difficult. Okay, Jerry Ann says we meet in Facebook Messenger, and that works for both of us. Yeah, and I had an accountability buddy for a while where we would send every morning an email and say, these are our top, 1 or 2 or sometimes 3 things that we're working on. And the cool thing about doing doing it online or electronically is you start to get a list of the things that you got done. You know, you start to say, okay, what exactly did I get done? The other person doesn't have to write it down. It's there electronically, so that's pretty cool. Oh, and Mary says, and she knows that generally her accountability buddy will check in with her on Thursday. So if she knows that that's going to happen, or she thinks that's going to happen, she takes that extra effort to make progress or get her thing done. Yeah, Jerry Ann says that's what they do. Yeah, it gives you that nice list of these are the things we got done. And sometimes those in themselves can be super motivating, just because you have that history of progress. And those days when you're like, oh, I'm not making any progress at all, you can go back and you can look at that email thread and be reminded, oh, look at all the things, look at all the projects, look at all the tasks or whatever it is that I have gotten done. So let's see, what else do I want to share about this? Okay, what to share, what's covered in the meetings. Oh, being a good accountability buddy. So that means when somebody doesn't get something done, ask about it. And do it in your style. So if you've noticed that there's a particular task that they said is super important and it's not done, you ask them, hey, what's happening there? And if you notice it's been 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and it's still not done, you know, dig in a little bit and ask what's going on. However, this doesn't mean, and this is super hard for coaches, this doesn't mean that you have to coach them on it. It does mean that you're there for them and you're just asking, you know, is it really that important or what's going on there? So if you are an accountability buddy, being a good accountability buddy also means holding the other person accountable. Not just letting them say, oh yeah, that didn't get done, but actually asking, hey, let's talk about that a minute. What's going on? And it can mean calling BS. It could, in the most loving way possible, if that's your style, or, you know, if your style is abrupt and to the point, do it that way. You know, follow your style. They're your accountability buddy. You need to be you. But call BS. If they're saying something and you know that, you know, they're avoiding something, call them on it, right? You are a safe place for them, and they should be a safe place for you. And you want to notice when, maybe that's not the right term, it's not that you want to notice, but you want to be able to challenge them in a loving way. So, you know, notice when something isn't getting done. If they're talking about something that just doesn't seem quite them or quite, you know, if they come, how do I want to say it? If they're coming forward and they're saying, these are my top 2 or 3 things, and you know from previous conversations that there's some other things maybe that should be coming up, call them on it, ask them about it. And maybe there's a situation that they didn't share that now they're sharing, but, you know, ask them about it. Respect time, so, you know, don't get caught up in a lot of stories or unnecessary details, but be there for that person and call them on BS if they need to be called on BS, right? Hold them accountable. So I didn't see any comments on accountability buddies. I would say, though, the most important things to keep in mind are know your style, know what style you want, and set up those guidelines beforehand. So setting those expectations and those boundaries too, to a certain degree, are important in anything, but they're also important in setting up accountability buddies. So know when you're going to meet, what time, how long. If you don't have that much time that morning, let the other person know. So if you have 10 minutes and you're like, I have 10 minutes and I got to be gone because of XYZ, you know, let them know. But set up those expectations beforehand. Set up the You know, what are we sharing each time we meet? What is the protocol for needing to vent or share what's going on? So is there a time limit? If you normally meet for 15 minutes, do you have one meeting a month or one meeting a week where it goes a little bit longer? You know, how do you want that to be set up, and outline them with that person. I've had accountability buddies where one of my accountability buddies, she was part-time. She had a full-time business that she was running, and then she had a part-time business on the side that was kind of an offshoot of that business. And we just didn't really click, and we didn't set really clear boundaries. So when things kind of fizzled out, neither of us really quite knew what to do with it. I had another accountability buddy where we were talking pretty regularly, and then it just kind of fizzled, and again, you know, we didn't know what to do. So, you know, maybe that's something else you talk about, is if meetings are missed or if emails aren't responded to, you know, what's the protocol? How do you want that to be handled? The last accountability buddy that I had, it worked out really great. We met regularly once a week. We did some of it online sometimes because she was working in another business that was related to a business that she wanted or was in the process of creating. And it just worked out really well. And the reason that we stopped was we knew each other from a program that we were both going through, and I was not in that I was not going to be continuing in that program, and she was. And we just talked, and I said, I think it's super important that you have somebody that is in that program with you. So, you know, as you go to the meetings and are having ahas at those places, you're with somebody who's also had those experiences. So, but we still chat here and there. It was very amicable. Any questions? Any final thoughts on accountability buddies before I wrap up here? I don't see anything coming through. I'll give it a second because I know there's a bit of a lag. So, again, if you don't have an accountability buddy, grab one. If the Facebook group works for you, that's great. You know, continue doing that. You don't have to have an accountability buddy. Just have a place where you get accountability. So again, I think everybody that's on live is in the group. For anybody on the recording, well, the ladies anyway, head over to Productivity for Women Entrepreneurs, and we do accountability there every single week. Mary says, do you have any hints on finding an accountability buddy? Sometimes it's just a matter of asking. So if you know somebody that you feel aligned, they would be a good match for you, then ask them. Ask them if they have an accountability buddy and if they would be willing to be your accountability buddy. And maybe share this video with them so they have an idea about, you know, some of the things they might want to do with you to make sure that it's a successful endeavor. If there's a group that you belong to that is a really good group for you and you love the people, then if it could just be, you know, sharing at a meeting, hey, I'm looking for an accountability buddy and this is, you know, a little bit of what I'm looking for, you know, let's chat. Or sharing in a Facebook group that, you know, is full of like-minded individuals that you're looking for an accountability buddy and, you know, they need to meet with you, you know, at some point between 9 and 10 a.m. on Tuesdays or whatever. And, you know, you want somebody who also is working their business full time. You know, you can decide kind of what you want to share so that you're not just, you can just say, hey, I'm looking for an accountability buddy and see what pops up. You might have some better success with finding a good match if you can add a little bit about what you're looking for. So adding where they are in their business or even the type of business that they have might be helpful depending on what you do and where you are. Anything that you want to make sure is present in your accountability buddy, you know, just throw it out there. So I don't see any other questions. I'm trying to think if there's any other hints for finding an accountability buddy. I think those are the main ones. Find a group. If you don't have a person in mind, find a group that feels very like-minded to you and post in the group. So if you're in Productivity for Women Entrepreneurs and you're looking for an accountability buddy, feel free to post it there. Say, hey, I'm looking for an accountability buddy and this is what I'm looking for. Yeah, feel free to post it there. One-on-one would be good, or maybe 3 to 4 people in a group. For accountability, one-on-one is the best. If you're doing masterminds, which is a little bit different, there's accountability in there, but it's different. If you're doing masterminds, then you can do 3 to 4 people, but those are usually structured, and masterminds are usually structured and have a facilitator to kind of keep you on track. For an accountability buddy, one-on-one is generally the best. You could do more, but you're going to have to play with how that's set up a little bit. But I would recommend for an accountability buddy doing it one-on-one. If you're looking for a group, then that's going to be a little bit different. Then you're moving more into masterminding. And again, that there's accountability inherent in that. That's where I'm getting my accountability right now, is I am in a mastermind group. But I don't have an accountability buddy that's a little bit different. Does that make sense? So again, for accountability buddies, one-on-one, if you're looking for like a mastermind group, then that's when you look into the 3 or 4 people, and usually there's a facilitator. So if anybody has questions about mastermind groups or group coaching, let me know, and I can share what I know about them and how I approach them. So, all right, I am going to finish up here. So again, my name is Evie Burke. I am the mindset mentor and success coach at One Insight Closer, and I help women entrepreneurs take their productivity to the next level so they can really be present with the people that they love at the end of the day. So, today's topic was accountability buddies. If you have any other questions around accountability buddies, post them in the comments here. I will see them later, and feel free to head over to Productivity for Women Entrepreneurs and join us over there. We have a nice group of ladies who are very engaged and sharing what they're doing. On Tuesdays, I ask, what's going on in your business? And there were a lot of posts this week, and it was so exciting to see all of the cool things that the people in the group are doing with their businesses. So join us over there. I'd love to have you. So until next week, much love. Bye.